لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Surah Al-Imran, ayah 102 and 103, both are very famous ayat. The translation of the ayah number 102 we did last week, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the Muslims that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, do not die, those people who have believed, do not die except as Muslims. And the first part of the ayah we also did that fear Allah as is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be feared, or refrain from the disobedience to Allah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be to refrain from his disobedience. We'll do the translation of the next ayah as well, and then we'll go over some ma'arif or the deeper meanings of these ayat. Wa'tasimu, i'tisam, again we've explained that i'tisam basically means to hold fast to something, stick closely with all your willpower and giving up everything else. Wa'tasimu bihablillah, hablillah, the cord of Allah, the rope of Allah, and according to the consensus of Mufassirin, this means the Quran. Bihablillah means wa'tasimu bihablillah, hold firm to the book of Allah. Jami'an wa la tafarraqu, together, hold all of you hold strongly to the book of Allah. Wa la tafarraqu, and do not make firqa among you, do not be divided. واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. Remember the blessing of Allah upon you when you were enemies to each other, and He brought your hearts together so that you became brothers through His blessing. So in this particular ayah, there is the specific background would be an address to the two tribes of Muslims that we talked about, Aus and Khazraj. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them that remember the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You were on the verge of, you were enemies, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put ulfat or love among in your hearts, brought your hearts together. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا, because of the ni'mah or the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you became ikhwan, or brothers. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا, you were at the brink of a pit of fire, then He saved you. فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا, He saved you from it. So the specific background is about those two tribes, but the general meaning is general for all Muslims, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed all Muslims, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them with His ni'mah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put ulfat or love and brought their hearts together, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made all Muslims, all believers, Muslims and brothers. And the people should remember the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that before they had brought Islam, before they had accepted the Prophet of the Prophet, they were as if on the brink of a pit of fire, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. This is how Allah makes His signs clear to you so that you may take the right path. So now there's a few ma'arif that we should think about that has other Mufassirin have written. So these are two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that would unite all the Muslims. Number one is taqwa, and the other is kitabullah. One thing that should be noted is that in the previous ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told Muslims to stay together. And here also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, but in this ayah, ayah 103, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a very practical method of how can Muslims unite, and what can Muslims unite on, and what can in fact all people unite on. So if anyone in this whole world says that I am saying this, all other people should come to this. Whatever is my path, all other people should come to this. Whoever says that, there will always be conflicting opinions to that. Someone else will say, no, what I am saying is better. The way I am doing things is better. My beliefs are better. So the only way upon which creation can unite is something that is not from the creation. Because if something is coming from a creation, there's so many creations, there's so many human beings, many of them think differently from the others. Each one will have their own way, and the others, if they want the others to come and unite on that is never going to happen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a very practical measure that unite on the word of the creator, not the creation. Unite on the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is a blessing and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has promised that نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We have descended it, and we are going to safeguard it. We are going to protect it. So all creations theoretically, logically can only come together on the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the only practical and the only workable way of uniting the humanity. This is also for Muslims. So if you're talking about people, Muslims versus non-Muslims, this holds. But if you're also talking about even among Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Do not create firqa. And from this the ulama have said that firqa, we should understand, technically firqa is a branch who call themselves Muslims, but they have deranged beliefs. So firqa, only those faction of people who have deranged beliefs, who differ in terms of beliefs, in terms of core aqaid, they will be called a different firqa. For example, Sunni is a firqa, Shia is a firqa, right? According to most ulama. Now, individually speaking, some of the people among Shia may have done things that just put them out of the fold of Islam, right? So, individual level, they can differ. But firqa is formed when people differ in terms of aqaid. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that stick to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not make these firqa. Only one of the firqa, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, there will be so many groups of Muslims at this level, differing in terms of aqaid. If they are differing in terms of how to do things, for example, where to fold hands, right? Do we lift our hands to our ears when we are going in ruku or not? When we raise our hands after salah for dua or not? This does not divide Muslims in firqa. This will not be called a firqa. These are differences in terms of practical application, and these differences are a blessing in the ummah, because all of these are the sunnahs of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ did many things in different ways at different times, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that each single way that the Prophet ﷺ did it will be carried on to the day of judgment. So these differences are not called tafarruqa or making a firqa. Firqa is where people have deranged aqaid. They differ in aqaid. These people, Ahnaf, the people who follow Imam Malik, the people who follow Imam Shafi'i, the people who follow Imam Ahmad Hanbal, they are not different sects or firqa, but they differ in practical application of a'mal. So these differences are, according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, a blessing among the ummah. A few other things to be noted is that what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about? إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. How did that happen? That they were enemies and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them, brought their hearts together. This happened because of Islam. This happened because of believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the only ilah, and the Prophet ﷺ to be his final and the only prophet to be followed. So, and فَأَلَّفَ basically means that we brought your hearts together. So two things have to be driven. Hearts will be brought together based on Islam, and it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is going to bring hearts together. So if you are trying to create unity while we are going away from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there will never be any unity. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is so we may try as hard as we want, but our hearts will not come together until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to come together, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself brings them closer together. And why and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring them closer together? When we unite on the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we follow Islam, unity will increase, or our hearts will become closer. This applies to every single family. This applies to our relationship with friends. This applies to all relationships that we have. If you follow the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as explained by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as shown to us practically by the action of the Sahaba, only if we do it that way, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create love and bring families together, bring friends together. Otherwise, that is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Anyway, the other thing that Hazrat Basreen have written is that before commanding the Muslims to stick to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bihablillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right in the ayah before it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded about taqwa. So, sticking to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when and how is that going to become valid? When you first have taqwa. When you first have taqwa, because taqwa is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is at the base of honesty. So when you have taqwa and when you have honesty in your heart, only then you will understand the real meaning of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only taqwa will enable you to stick properly to the habl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll stop here at that, inshallah. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin. ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين واغفر وارحم وانت خير الراحمين. صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين. امين برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين.